within this architecture, there's an additional general factor which is critical for the development of appropriate connectivity. It's not really genetic specification, but I'm going to mention it at this point. Remember, at a detailed level, much of the information is stored in the synaptic weights of connections between neurons. Some connectivity is genetically defined, but most must be discovered through experience. And this experience-determined connectivity is not known in advance. As I mentioned earlier in the course, there isn't time to create the appropriate synapses on the fly when needed during experience. So provisional connectivity must be created in advance of experience. But that provisional connectivity won't have an immediate role, for example, the silent synapses in the cortex. Creation of those silent synapses needs resources, and it's therefore important to make sure there's a reasonable chance, or at least some chance, that they'll be useful. But apart from genetic information, the only source of guidance is whatever past experience the brain's already accumulated. If two neurons have often been active in the past at the same time, a connection between them is a lot more likely to be useful than if there's no such past activity correlation. And recent simultaneous activity could be a slightly better guide in general than the more distant past, although more remote experience could still be important. So the way the brain accesses such information is by performing a fast rerun of a kind of averaged sample of past experience, with a bias towards the more recent. Provisional synapses can then be created between neurons often active at the same time during this rerun. Now obviously, a rerun like this would severely interfere with processing current sensory inputs, so the brain's taken offline in the process called sleep. So within this overall architecture, let's now go on to take a closer look at the nature of the genetic biases and how they interact with experience for the process of bootstrapping category naming behaviors. But let's start with the definition of phonemes, or basic sounds used in speech, and we'll start with that in the next section.